Hello and welcome to all the participants joining in for today's Fireside Chat. It is indeed my honor and privilege to be speaking with the veteran investor Jim Rogers on our topic of discussion headline The World Economy and Financial Markets, Setback and Recovery. Welcome, Jim. To
Uh,
introduce myself, I am Vivek Sharma, Head of International Clients Group at Edelweiss Wealth Management. Not that Jim needs any introduction, but I would like to highlight some of his achievements and life experiences in the field of investing. Jim is an acclaimed author, financial commentator, global investor, adventure seeker, and on top of it, a proud parent of two wonderful daughters. He's frequently featured in many of the global publications like Washington Post, New York Times, Financial Times, and many more. He's a regular commentator on global markets and economy and is also a guest professor at Columbia Business School. Jim co-founded the Quantum Fund, a global investment partnership, and between 1973 and 1980, the fund delivered a whooping 4,200% return, while S&P tracked less than 50% during the same time period. Jim is also the creator of the widely tracked Rogers International Commodity Index. In 1992, Jim fulfilled his lifelong dream of motorcycling well over 100,000 miles across 6 continents, a feat that landed him in the Guinness Book of World Records. The journey is chronicled in the hugely popular book Investment Biker, On the Road with Jim Rogers. Jim later again traveled, this time for more than 3 years, across 116 countries and covering more than 245,000 kilometers this time, which he recounted in his book, Adventure Capitalist, The Ultimate Road Trip. I must say, it has been one heck of a ride, Jim. The most important thing about Jim, apart from his many accomplishments, is that he's frank, honest, and has never shied away from taking the unconventional approach to investing or life in general. Once again, I would like to thank Jim and welcome him to our interview series this afternoon. I'm sure all the attendees are keenly looking forward to hear Jim's views on the current economic and geopolitical environment that surrounds us. So with
Vivek,
that,
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
thank you so much, Jim, and it's a pleasure to host you. And I'm sure all the guests are keenly awaiting to hear your thoughts on the current macro geopolitical environment. So, if you may allow, I would like to use this opportunity to ask a few of the questions on behalf of our attendees. So, first of all, Jim, we all know that the first half of 2022 has been a difficult one, right? It's been a unique year in the sense that all the asset classes have suffered and there hasn't been a hiding place for investors. So give us a sense of what do you expect in the second half of 2022 and what could be some of the key developments to watch out for in the next 6 to 7 months.
Well, Vivek, there's a lot of pessimism around right now. Nearly everywhere I go, people are disappointed and pessimistic. That usually leads to some good news. I don't know what. I mean, say there were peace in Ukraine. That would be good news and the markets would go up. I don't know what might cause it, but we're probably going to have some good news and a big rally. But my plan is, if it happens, when it happens, to sell it and probably to sell it short. It will probably be a good rally because it'll be good news. Might even be a blow-off rally. You know, there at the end of many bull markets, you have a big blow-off where things just skyrocket. If that's the case, it'll be a great opportunity to sell short because we're going to have economic problems in the world in the next few years, certainly the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. So you've been quoted as saying that this could be one of the worst bear markets that you would have seen in your lifetime. So what makes you convinced of such a doomsday scenario? And
Well, as you remember, in 2008, 2009, the world had a bad problem because of too much debt. Well, Vivek, since 2009, the debt everywhere has skyrocketed. So the next problem has to be the worst in my lifetime, because the debt is far, far, far the worst in any of our lifetimes. So when we have a problem, it has to be very bad next time. I think that's just simple analysis of what's going on in the world and how markets work.
sure. Um, So the world has obviously experienced significant shocks in the last couple of years, Jim, right? We had the global pandemic. We were just about beginning to adjust to the new reality when there was it was followed by the war, disruption of global supply chain, food crisis, high inflation. Everything seems to be going against you. So as an investor, how should one navigate these troubled times? What would be your 2 cents on this for investors who find the current climate to be extremely challenging to manage their personal portfolios?
Well, investors always should only invest in what they know. Do not listen to other people. Do not listen to hot tips. If you want to be successful, stay with what you know. Everybody knows a lot about cars or fashion or something. If you stay with what you know, then you know what to do when things go wrong and you know how to react. If you start listening to hot tips, you're going to suffer badly. I will tell you what I'm doing. But you should not do what I do unless you know a lot about them. Bonds are certainly in a bubble all over the world. They've never been this expensive. Property in many places, Korea, New Zealand, parts of India, property has been in a bubble because of low interest rates. Some stocks have been forming bubbles, 10-cent, Samsung, these stocks never go down. The only asset class I know that's cheap is commodities. I mean, silver is down 70% from its all-time high. Sugar's down 70%. These are not bubble prices. These are assets that are still very low. And when you have inflation, if you own the things that go up in price, you make money. And when there's inflation, real assets, commodities usually go up.
Yeah, so definitely sugar and silver are things or asset classes to watch out for.
Well, silver, I mean, in India, there's a lot of silver, as you know, probably the largest silver consuming nation in the world. Indians know a lot more about it than most people. Anyway, I'm optimistic about silver. I own silver. I'm not buying it now, but if it continues to go down, I plan to buy more.
Sure. How about emerging market, Jim? They've been adversely impacted, obviously, with the strengthening of the US dollar and the risk aversion that seems to have taken a grip. How do you look at emerging markets as a whole? And if you could extend that to basically reflect your views on both China and India, the two behemoths, as far as the emerging market is concerned.
Well, I own energy. I plan to buy more. The world known reserves of oil continue to decline all over the world. Fracking came along and helped stop that decline, but the fracking bubble has burst now. We still have fracking, but it's not a bubble anymore. So known reserves continue to decline. I own energy. I plan to buy more. We may have electric cars in the future, but if we do, Vivek, electric cars use many times more copper and lead and lithium than petrol cars. So either way, there's going to be more demand for commodities, whether it's petrol cars or electric cars. So there's still increased demand, and nobody's been opening lead mines for a long time. So there will be more opportunities in commodities and in energy.
Sure. And how do you see the emerging markets as a group reacting to what's happening, right? The strengthening of the US dollar, or the risk aversion and the outflow of money from emerging markets. How do you see the entire emerging market basket reacting to the current environment?
Well, if you have a lot of energy, you're fine.
Jim, I think emerging markets. So I was talking about emerging markets. So India, China specifically.
I understand. Some emerging markets have a lot of energy. Some have no energy, and some must buy energy. If you are an emerging market that has energy, you're going to do well. If you're an emerging market that buys energy, you're going to suffer. Depends on what assets you have. As I look around, well, Uzbekistan is a market where I've started buying an emerging market recently. Most of the emerging markets were up a lot. Now they've come down. And I'm looking at, well, as I said, Uzbekistan as an emerging market where I've started buying shares. And I'm always looking for new markets.
Sure. So Uzbekistan is definitely on your radar. I read about it in some of your earlier interviews also. That and what is the peculiar thing that is leading you to look at a market like or a small economy like Uzbekistan?
Well, Uzbekistan was a former Soviet republic. You know, they were ruined by the communists, and the guy who was running Uzbekistan was one of the worst. But now there's a new crowd of people, and they're trying to open the economy and run it the way you would run it or the way I would run it. It's very cheap, lots of natural resources, lots of tourist resources. Oh my gosh, it's a great tourist, potentially a great tourist country. There are many things there, and maybe they're going to be managed properly now, and maybe I know it's very cheap. And if it's managed properly now, maybe I'll make some money.
Hmm. That's wonderful to know. How since you are personally based in Singapore, which and quite close to the big China, how are you reading the developments in China between US and China specifically, and given what's happening, some of the policies that China and the government there seems to be implementing? How are you reading the situation?
Well, I certainly don't like what the U.S. is doing in China. The U.S. seems to hit. When a country has problems, they always blame foreigners, and China's easy to blame. It's big and different, and Mr. Trump and now Mr. Biden both like to blame China for our problems, and there's more of that. It's not good for the world. It's not good for America. It's not good for China, but Vivek, it's the way politicians have worked all over the world for hundreds of years, and I'm afraid it's going to get worse because when the world economy gets worse, more blame is going to go around. China has been somewhat restrained, but China's hitting back now. They have to. So no, it's not a good situation. I mean, it could lead to a shooting war. It's not a prediction. I'm just saying, though, when people start hitting each other,
Yeah. So would
sometimes
you
it turns
so
into more
would
than just a trade war. It might turn into a shooting war.
so would you be still long China, neutral, or bearish on China?
No, I own Chinese shares. China is going to be a very successful country in the 21st century. Doesn't mean it won't have problems. America became the most successful country in the 20th century, but along the way, we had many depressions, massacres in the streets, civil war. We had many problems, but we still became a very successful nation. China will have many problems, but in my view, I don't see anybody else who can be as successful as China in the 21st century.
Wonderful. In your Millennium Adventures book, Jim, you spent about 2 months driving through various cities in India, right? Like Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata. Tell us about some of your personal experience of having traveled through the length and breadth of India. And how do you feel India has changed over the last few years since your last travels to India?
Well, Vivek, whenever I lecture or write, I tell people if you can only visit one country in the world, it should be India. There's a combination of amazing tourist sites, natural sites, man-made sites, food, languages, religions. The women are always winning the beauty contest. There are lots of smart people. Oh, it is an astonishing country. Now, they also learned bureaucracy from the English and took it to a higher plane. You know, it got a horrible bureaucracy in India, as you probably know.
Yeah.
But when it's cheap, it's a fantastic place to invest because there are lots of very smart Indians.
Yes, definitely. And we would like to believe that things are only improving or changing for the better. Um, Jim, all of us know that you were one of the earlier advocates for commodity investing globally, right? What is, as far as India is concerned, specifically the market regulator in India has recently allowed, and some would say quite late in the life cycle, for for international investors to trade in commodity derivatives. It was not allowed earlier, and you've clearly in your previous questions highlight how you're looking at sugar and silver as two asset classes. But outside of this, if since on the show we will also be having a lot of high net worth individuals and institutional investors, any particular way in what in for somebody who's just about starting to look at commodities as an asset class, right? What should be some of the things that one should look at while building out a portfolio?
Well, the best way, of course, Vivek, is to buy a farm and become a farmer. I'm not going to do that. I would probably fail as a farmer. But if you like being outdoors and hot and dirty, you might become a farmer. Or you could invest in things like tractor companies or seed companies, fertilizer companies. There are many ways to do it. You can buy futures. If you're good at trading or buying futures, you could buy an index. Many studies show that index investing outperforms most active investing year after year. So what I have done, what I've been doing this year, last year or so, is to buy indexes because I know I'm going to outperform most people and I'm lazy. It's a simple way to invest in commodities, a basket, a package of commodities.
If I may ask, Jim, what does your current allocation in your personal portfolio look like between equities, bonds, commodities, and cash? Today, how would you allocate?
Oh, Vivek, that's a good question. I have no idea. I don't have a committee that I have to answer to every month or every week. I know I own a lot of US dollars at the moment. I own commodities. What I bought, I own China, own Chinese shares. I don't own many US shares. I don't have an answer because I just don't know, but I do know I own a lot of dollars. I own commodities. I still have Chinese shares. They're down, of course, this year, not since I bought them. Those are places I wish I could buy Russia because Russia's at war. And I have learned in my experience that if you buy a country at war, near the end of a war, you usually make a lot of money if you have staying power. I am not buying Russia because I'm an American, but those are areas where I'm looking. Uzbekistan, I mentioned. I did buy it. I want to buy more Uzbekistan this week. Those are places that I don't know the exact allocation because I don't sit and measure it, but those are places that I have investments.
But are you also indicating that we are closer to the end than the beginning of the war between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, I have no idea. I know it's a crazy war. It shouldn't be, but no war should exist. I don't know. I just don't see who's getting anything out of it. I know that most people seem to be against the war, so I would guess it's going to come to an end, but that is not a prediction. I have no idea, Vivek.
And you also mentioned that you own a lot of US dollars, right? And we all know how the currency has appreciated in the current risk-off environment. Now, what does a strong US dollar mean for the rest of the world?
Well, if one thing that makes it more competitive, it makes it easier to sell to the U.S. If you want to sell to the U.S., it also means that the things you buy, such as raw materials, will be up in price. So it has a serious effect on many countries, but it can help countries be more competitive, at least in the short term, and that will help people sell to the U.S. and sell to other countries too, since many nations deal in U.S. dollars.
Okay. What is your view, Jim, on the whole crypto narrative, right? The cryptocurrency. Are you one of those who's a believer in this asset class, or you are of the camp which says that this is all speculative and should be closed, and government should not allow trading of these of this asset class? Where do you sit?
First of all, I don't like to believe in belief. I don't like to make investments based on belief. I try to make my investments based on hard research and fact finding and find out what is really going on, not what I believe or not what I want. Many people are trading cryptos and making money. Part of the problem, of course, Vivek, is that many have already disappeared. Many cryptos have gone to zero already. There's still many around. In my view, now the crypto bulls, the crypto optimists say that this is going to be the new money. Now, nearly every country in the world is working on putting money on the computer. In China, you cannot You cannot buy a taxi, take a taxi with money. You have to have your computer money. You cannot buy an ice cream in China with money. You have to put it here. But when America says, okay, this is now money, I don't think that the American government is going to say, but you want to use that, you can use that money too if you want to. That's not the way politicians and bureaucrats think. They want control, they want power. So I would suspect that crypto money will not be legal in most countries. We will have crypto money, but it will be government crypto money, not independent crypto money. So I've never bought or sold them. My wife likes them. My wife wants to buy some more today. As a matter of fact, it's not strife. It's just that that's what she wants. Let her. We don't fight about it or anything. I think it's crazy, but she likes them.
So you still own some of it in your portfolio?
I don't own any. She does.
She does.
She owns NFTs is really what she likes.
Wow, that's nice.
But not me, not me.
Wonderful. That's wonderful to know. Some of the questions that we had from the audience as well, Jim. One question that came about is when it comes to portfolio investing and creating a portfolio, right? There are various theories about how you should look at creating a portfolio, how should one go about investing in stocks, asset classes. But what would be your criteria for exiting, right? Or rebalancing as far as positions are concerned, whether in asset classes or in markets in general? How does one determine the right time to exit a position?
I want to emphasize that people should invest only in what they know, not what other people tell them, not hot tips. Only stay with what you know. If I told you you can only have 20 investments in your life, be very careful, and you'd probably be a very successful investor over the long term, over the years. Some people say, well, that's boring. Be boring. If you want to be a successful investor, don't worry about being boring. Stay with what you know. Everybody watching this knows a lot about something. Find your opportunities there and invest there, and you will be a very successful investor. As far as asset allocation, I think you use the term, I don't think about, if you want to be successful, you should put all of your eggs in one basket, but be sure you have the right basket and you watch that basket very, very carefully. If you want to get rich, that's how you get rich. Remember Henry Ford? Henry Ford didn't diversify. He put all his eggs into one basket and got very rich. Bill Gates, he put all of his eggs in one basket and got extremely rich. But you better be sure you have the right basket. But if you want to get rich, you focus, you concentrate, and you do a lot of research and a lot of homework.
Yeah, very well said, Jim. Specific to India, how do you think India can benefit from the uncertainty around the Chinese economy and the policies in general? Do you think there's an opportunity for India to attract some of the flows that have traditionally gone to China?
Well, India has a lot of really smart people. I mean, I wish your government would be less protectionist, less closed off. You know, they keep trying to protect people. They make people worse, if you ask me. But India and China should get really, really rich together. I mean, you're right there. You have a lot of things which you each need. You could be fantastic at agriculture again, and many things that the Indians could do and trade with the Chinese. If I were there, I would open the borders, open the economies, open the trading, open the currencies, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. Now, India's not going to do it, and China's not going to do it. But to me, I sit here and I say, what is wrong with them? It is so obvious that you should both be getting rich together instead of spatting.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is also the politics of it that ends up leading to a lot of decision making and a lot of things, how they pan out.
Well, I cannot tell India what to do, and I cannot tell China what to do. I'm just telling you, though, it seems to me, here you have 2.5 billion people who are very smart, hardworking, and could be really successful if you work together.
Sure. In 2006, you had mentioned that you were shorting US financials, right? Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So if I could ask, what is the next big short that you have up your sleeve?
Well, probably the next big short will be what you the fangs. They used to be called fangs.
Yeah,
Things like the Apples, the Amazons, the big
yeah,
technology companies in the U.S. That's probably where the next excesses will be. I'm looking to see where the excesses will be in this rally, if there's a big rally, and I hope I'm smart enough to sell them short if it happens that way.
sure. Do you think markets in general, Jim, have become tough for investors to navigate in terms of actually generating returns? Um, any learnings from from the previous crises? Because just that the pace of change and the volatility that seems to be impacting the markets or engulfing the market seems to be much more than any time in the past. Trends are changing at an ever fast speed. Um, Old trends are dying, new trends are emerging. So for investor, how does one and the old style of just staying invested and letting your money grow with time could get questioned in the current environment, right? So what would be your 2 cents on how investors should carefully build and protect their portfolios?
But again, the single advice is don't listen to me. Stay with what you know. Maybe they can listen to Vivek. Maybe they can listen to you, but they shouldn't listen to most people. Stay with what you know. Focus on what you know. Don't invest in things you don't know. You talked about how it's not different this time, Vivek. I see the same thing I've seen at the end of many bull markets. A lot of new people come in. They call their friends and they say, oh, I've discovered this new thing called the stock market, and it's fun, and you can make money, and it's easy. It's easy to make money. And SPACs have been around for 300
Yeah,
years, but
yeah,
SPACs come along every time there's an end of a long bull market. So SPACs are here again. I've seen this movie before, Vivek. I know how it ends. It's going to end with a lot of people losing a lot of money. I hope I don't lose a lot of money, but a lot of people who are new and inexperienced and think it's easy. And when it collapses and when a lot of people lose a lot of money, they're going to blame the market. They're going to blame the computer. They're going to blame the TV. They're going to blame you. They're going to blame me. They're going to blame everybody they can. As I say, I've seen this movie before.
yeah.
This is
Nothing
not the
surprising.
first time. It's happened many, many times, and I've read about it many more times.
Sure. You briefly alluded to your views on the FANG, but I was about to ask you in terms of what's your view on this entire e-commerce, fintech space, right? Companies which saw record growth in the phase during COVID. How do you see this entire cluster of companies and this entire economy going through or navigating through the current times? You think
Well,
the party is over, which was because of low interest rates?
there are always going to be new technologies developed. There are going to be new ways to do things. The computer is changing everything we know. It has changed everything I've known for many years now, and that's going to continue. If you can find the right people who are developing those dramatic changes, you'll make a lot of money. Blockchain is going to change everything we know. It is changing everything we know. If you can find the right blockchain company, blockchain people, you'll make a lot of money. It's changing everything. I mean, just in my lifetime, I've seen many fintech changes, huge changes, gigantic changes, just in my lifetime. And that's going to continue, I hope. My grandparents told me about the telephone. Everybody was afraid of the telephone. When it would ring, they didn't know what to do. They were afraid to answer it. They didn't know about the telephone because it was new and unknown. We've always had new technology. I hope we continue to have. I hope it makes many changes. I hope we all get it right.
Sure. what's your view on inflation, right? And governments across the world seem to be grappling with the best way to deal with inflation, because most of our generation has not seen inflation in their lifetime, right? And now governments seem to be reacting in a hurry through monetary policy in most instances. But if there is a belief that some of this inflation is also supply led, so how effective you think the actions of the various governments across the globe is going to be in curtailing inflation?
Well, we've had the U.S. printing huge amounts of money. The Japanese, the head of the Bank of Japan said he would print, his word, unlimited amounts of money, and they've all been printing huge amounts of money. And that has always led to inflation. It's leading to inflation again. The American Central Bank says, no, don't worry, we're not going to have inflation. And then they said it was transitory, it's temporary. Come on, these guys don't have a clue what they're doing. I think history is very clear that printing a lot of money always leads to inflation. We have that inflation. It's going to get worse. They may make some efforts to calm it down, and they will. But as long as they print money, and as the economies get bad again, they're going to print more money. No, you need to be worried, Vivek. You need to find ways to protect yourself, whether it's silver or sugar or rice, whatever it is. You need to be aware of how inflation can hurt, and that it's going to go on. It takes a long time to break it. You know, in the 70s, interest rates in America on treasury bills went to over 20%. US treasury bills were over 20% because things were so bad that the central bank had to do really strong, crazy things to break inflation. They did, but it took a lot of very serious efforts, and it will again.
Yes. Yeah. So I just have a last couple of questions, Jim, and but your views, as usual, have been to the point. When you moved to Singapore in 2007, right, you were quite vocal that this is going to be the century for the Asian countries, right? And that was one of the key triggers for you to move from US to Singapore. Has anything changed, or has your view got strengthened, or are you finding any other pocket outside of Asia, or you think that the best time is yet to come as far as Asia is concerned?
Well, Asia certainly has continued to grow dramatically, much more than the West in this century. The Western countries have gotten higher and higher debt, all of them, and Japan, if you call, I mean, that's sort of a Western country. All of these countries have built up gigantic debt. The Asian countries have continued to prosper and grow faster. In my view, I don't see anything that's going to change that. Yes, there'll be problems along the way. There always are, but I don't see how. I mean, the US is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. You know, there are problems there. Japan has got staggering debts. Japan's had a declining population since 2010. There are many problems in the so-called Western or developed world. Asia still seems to be the place to be as far as I look out the window. Maybe some African countries, but African countries have not built up the capital and the expertise that Asia has. So it seems to me it's still Asia.
Understood. On the personal front, Jim, what gets you excited every morning? What is it that you feel that gets your energy levels, and what do you look forward to?
Well, Vivek, I never wanted to have children. I thought children were a horrible waste of time and energy and money. I was anti. I felt very sorry for my friends who had children. I was wrong. I didn't have children till late in life, and everybody should have children. Do not miss it. It's one of the most fabulous, wonderful things you can do. So my children, that's the main focus of my interest in my life at this point in time.
And couldn't agree with you more on that, Jim. And it's been it's been absolutely wonderful and a privilege to speak to you. And thanks so much for your candid views. I'm sure the audience would have appreciated with your forthright and candor. It was lovely speaking with you, Jim. Thanks so much.
It is my pleasure, Vivek. I hope we can do it again sometime. I'm very, very keen on Asia, and all of your viewers should take a day off. Well, maybe not take a day, but go home for lunch one day and think about having kids. That'll be a lot of fun and a very, very good investment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. Have a lovely day.